What's the most depressing secret someone has told you when they were drunk? That they didn't want to go through with their wedding and marry their fiancé. They went through with it. They had a fair-size wedding and a $10,000 honeymoon. They separated after 4 months. One of those situations where you realize life isn't like the movies. I didn't try and stop the wedding and save everyone from their bad decisions. I just listened. Talk about a rock and a hard place. Questioning whether they really meant it, or are they just having the jitters. One night, a friend drunkenly told me that he knew that the kid he had just had with his girlfriend wasn't his, because he had a serious injury to his groin years before that and was told he likely couldn't have kids. When she told him she was pregnant, he thought, wow, the doctor must have been wrong, but something was telling him that they weren't. So he went to have a sperm count done. He was told that it was very unlikely that he would be able to father a child. He said he stays with her and doesn't tell her he knows the child isn't his because he doesn't want to be alone for the rest of his life. Whoa, reminds me of a lonely guy I know who was perpetually trying to get any woman who would sleep with him pregnant. He thought it was the ticket to a lifelong relationship. I don't think he realized that she could leave with the child or get an abortion or do just about anything in the aftermath. My sister, about a month or so after she got married, got wasted drunk and she told me that she only ever wanted to be happy. She said that she read The Happiest People, have dogs and are married. So she got dogs, and she got married, and for some reason this drunken explanation she gave me sounded like one of the saddest things I've ever heard. Met up with a girl I had a crush on in high school, and we hit it off. She had 2 kids, but that was cool by me, and she was just a stunningly beautiful girl. Things were good. We spent the evening chatting and drinking and then it moved into making out and such things. We stopped briefly to get another drink and she wanted to tit to the bedroom, so I followed her. And then, after I commented on her snazzy bed, I was told this huge story about it being new because her last boyfriend left her and she had to live in a dive apartment for a while where all of her kids and her belongings got infested with bedbugs and she had to toss away most of her things and get new things and how hard it was. She was bawling talking about it and it broke my heart. Anyway, that killed the night. We chatted until she fell asleep and then I crashed on the couch. The next morning she came out and saw me on the couch and started bawling again because she thought I just fricked off and left, but was happy I stayed and made me breakfast before I took off. We were out at a strip club for a bachelor party for one of the guys I worked with. An older man was sitting next to our group and started up a conversation. Really nice dude. Ended up buying us around and bought our groom to be a lap dance. As the night went on and we all were a ton more drunk, he sat down next to me and told me to cherish the friends I had, because he had went through life focusing on money and material things, that he had no friends and no family. He had just been diagnosed with terminal cancer and was told he had about 6 months to live and this was the only way he found a bit of happiness was at a strip club. He said for me to never let myself get into his position. The guy was tearing up and I am guessing he just really wanted people to care. Really sad to see someone in that position. This will be me in due time. My husband telling me that he never really loved me that way. He just didn't want to be alone all of his life. Then admitting he had finally fallen in love and I should be happy for him, because they were secretly engaged now. That was 13 years ago. They didn't even last a year, and I still regret wasting the years of my time with him that I did. She was molested constantly by her father and also raped by him. He had done it since she was basically a baby. It wasn't until she saw an episode of TLC about child molestation that she realized it was wrong. Her father hopped up and turned off the television. She kept saying all I wanted was some ice cream to me that day. Apparently one incident was involved where she was getting ice cream and her father used it as an excuse to do his thing. He also used crack on her to get her high and continue the abuse. This was my first real girlfriend. She's married now and has a child. She also has a state job and graduated from college. I am honored to have known her and hope her life has continued with success. Ugh, I hate that this happens to people. One of my exes told me some similar things. Her father started molesting her well before she was 10 years old and kept molesting and raping her until she was 17 and left home. Horrific things happened to her. Just horrific. And more horrific is the fact that her mother knows and is still married to the father. Terrible. My dad told me that he was molested by a youth pastor when he was 4. Then, that he'd only ever told one other person, my mom, and she was so drunk at the time that she made fun of him and had absolutely no memory of it the next day. Knowing that he's carried that around for more than 50 years, keeping it all in, and still tied up and could barely get the words out, is horrible. Christ, that's awful. That they walked in on their brother attempting suicide. Also, a few people have told me about their depression while drunk. Depression is a funny thing because it seems super normal to you after a while. Like, yeah, I fantasized about dying about 5 times today. Pretty normal day, but you still know that socially that kind of thing is unacceptable. So you think that way all the time but are careful to hide it from others. Then it comes out when you're drunk and your social inhibition is down. I can't have children, but my phone is loaded with pictures of my niece and sometimes I pretend she's my little daughter. After reading my phone is loaded with pictures of my niece that didn't end as badly as I thought it would. That all of her friends kept telling her that her boyfriend was cheating on her, and that she didn't want to believe it, but her best friend just told her the same thing and she didn't know what to do. Some people deny it, too, like, they know that it's happening and the other person won't stop, but they turn a blind eye and pretend like their relationship is happy and fulfilling. It gets pretty dark watching people do that for years. I was a busser at a martini bar and one night just after closing. We don't kick people out, just stop letting them in. There is only one guy left and as I'm bringing back the trash can from emptying we get to chatting. Initially it was just your average "do you like working here, you see that raise game earlier" kind of talk. Then suddenly he started telling me about how he was a paramedic for years and about his mother that was very sick for a long time. One day she had a heart attack while he was visiting and he couldn't save her. This 50-year-old man broke down and sobbed. She just wanted me to love her, and from what he had told me he had always been there for her and helped in every way. I told him that he did his best and that he was a good son. I hugged him and he cried on my shoulder. Eventually we called him a cab and he thanked me for listening. I never did get his name, but I saw him and there a few more times and we always shared a knowing nod. He was an alcoholic regular at a bar I worked, but a lovely guy. Would always hit a certain level of drunk and just ask me to ring his dad to come get him. That certain level could be 20 vodkas in. One day he was in early and it was just him and me, and we start chatting. He tells me his uncle abused him as a kid and now he starts every morning with straight vodka, which he keeps beside his bed, and he wishes he didn't have to. I was like 16/17 at the time, so had no idea how to respond. Not that 30-year-old me would either. I don't do bar work since I finished college, but he has recently moved in with a woman and is living a few houses down from my parents. I'm pretty sure he's still drinking but seems to be doing okay otherwise. I'm sure he doesn't even remember telling me. My brother told me that he saw my ex-girlfriend at a party, pretty drunk. She told him she wished she had treated me better, that I hadn't deserved to be shut out by her, which she did before and she broke up with me, without giving me a real reason why, and that she still thinks about me after 3 years. That might seem like an "I told you so" moment, but it depressed me to hear she wasn't able to move on. I was playing devil's advocate. Her wishing she treated you better and occasionally thinking of you does not mean that she has not moved on. You're part of her past, good or bad. My husband thought I'd be upset that he liked men as well as women. He was so heartbroken at his own nature, and ridiculously drunk. I just asked him if he loved me. He said of course and we're kosher. It wasn't what he said that was sad. It was just so upsetting to see him so fearful of what I would say. He was physically cowering. I still don't understand why he was afraid. We have such an open and loving relationship. I'm so unbelievably proud of him for being honest with me and himself. 3. That he was sorry for being my abuser both physically and mentally for all of my life. He had to get really drunk to say that, but when he sobered up he denied everything and continued to abuse me. It was depressing because I thought things would change. Jesus. Happy Cake Day. That my friend was gay and that holding it as a secret had caused him to be severely depressed. I told him it didn't matter if he was gay or straight. Nobody would think any different. I've helped a couple of friends come out. They all feared being persecuted, but in reality, nobody gave a crap except the friends and family who were happy for them. Now it isn't a taboo anymore to be gay, but it's still hard for people to believe it. There's this guy who lives in town. We will call him Mark. Mark has only lived in town a few short years and works at our local gas station. He's very friendly and I can honestly say I've never gotten a bad feeling about him ever. I, a woman, normally don't just trust people I encounter, but I've always known Mark to be a gentle soul and never thought of him to be violent. One night, Mark comes into the bar where I'm at and sits next to me. He is very drunk. I've seen him drunk many times but only one other time this drunk. This night, he starts telling me about his sister. Now, Mark is normally a very quiet, to himself, kinda dude. I don't know a whole lot about him, which made this story all the more powerful. Apparently, when she was 14-15 years old, she left home with her boyfriend. Mark wasn't okay with this and after a few days decided to track him down. When he got to BF's house, he found a house full of women his sister's age profile. He demanded his sister leave with him or he would call the cops. Her BF claimed she isn't your sister, to which Mark apparently had a screwdriver in hand and promptly stabbed BF in the throat. Mark said with hand motions reenacting, "I stuck the screwdriver in his throat and he just collapses to the ground." He then said he told all the girls that if any of them wanted to leave to get in the car now, and he ended up taking 10 girls home that night. This was completely a shock to me because A, I was pretty well drunk and B, never known of a person that killed another before. Though I don't condone taking the life of any living thing, I think Mark did the right thing. Mark is one hardcore mother. That she was raped when she was younger, and that she wishes her mother had died instead of her father that had recently passed away. Her mother was literally 10 feet away when she said this. This was about a year after my wife died. I was 27. You know, it was kind of a good thing that she died. You two never seemed like a good match to me anyway. Whoa, you have to be kidding me. I think I would have punched a face in for that one. Wasn't told to me, but a buddy was out at some event with his boss and the boss wife, neither of whom is known for alcoholic moderation. The wife made a comment about how many batteries she was going through, and I guess the truth spilled out. Apparently, the boss had a stroke a year or two earlier, and now his dong doesn't work anymore. The boss had a stroke a year or two earlier. At least he got one in before his dong stopped working. I have a friend that gets extremely drunk and sleeps around. Well, usually she comes to me and asks if she can trust this guy. I always thought it meant in like a call you back kind of sense, or maybe an STD. Well, since I know them all, I'd say yes. Well, all these guys started to tell me that she wanted them to finish inside her with no protection. She insisted she was on the pill, which she is. So everyone did it. Weird behavior, right? Well, I had to investigate, and one night when she was drunk out of her mind, she just broke down and told me everything. Turns out that the May of last semester she got pregnant, but the guy would not respond to her calls or texts until finally he said get an abortion. Well, she did. The reason she sleeps with so many guys and lets them finish inside is because of some weird reaction she's having from the whole abortion situation. And the reason she asks can I trust them? Yeah, it's to know if they'll accept her child if she does get pregnant. She drinks because she's afraid of being turned away for her past. Now the phrase "can I trust them" rings in my head over the fear of her getting pregnant with any of them, because with her definition of trust, she can't. One of my best friends got absolutely hammered at my house party when we were 16 and my parents were out for the weekend. There were 7 of us in total drinking apple sours. It was all our local corner shops sold and one of us in the group never got ID'd in there. Anyway, at about 1 AM we noticed we hadn't seen or heard from him in about an hour and a half, so I went to look for him in case he was being sick, and I could direct him to the toilet if need be. But instead he was stood at the bottom of my driveway in just his underwear and crying really heavily. I managed to get him to calm down, and he was saying how his mother, who left his dad when he was 13 for another man, didn't love him. never will, and wonders what he has done to deserve that. She doesn't answer his calls and bails out on planned days to see each other at the last minute all the time. Usually he's the I don't show my emotions type. Persuaded him to raid dress, and I have never mentioned this to my other friends. I still don't know why he was nearly naked. My dad told me this when he got smashed once. My dad jumped from foster house to foster house. He worked full time, and often 3 jobs at a time, since he was 14. He was sexually, physically and emotionally abused throughout his youth. If he wanted anything, he had to suck dong. His money was always taken from him by his foster parents. He downed a 26 of whiskey when he was 16, and told his best friend at the time he was going to kill himself that night. He throws up whenever he has whiskey now. He's rebuilt his life from ground zero many times, including recovering from vast debts. I have huge respect for him. That I was his best friend in this city. He had lived here for around 2 years. We went to a bar together only a couple of times, and although I like the guy, I definitely wouldn't call him my best friend. I still feel extremely guilty. Throwaway. I recall telling a friend's dad that I love my friend. He's like, but you guys have been friends forever, and now he has a girlfriend. His girlfriend would hate you if she found out. I held back tears and said, yeah, I know. That's why I can't tell him. But I wanted someone to know. Your son is a great guy. I just want him to be happy with or without me. I then shed a tear and he hugged and told me my secret was safe with him and wished things were different. 2 tears. My friend told me that her uncle raped her when she was 12. Then at 15 she ran off her house and she came alone to another city. At 16 she started to work at a brothel. She is still in the business. My brother told me that he molested our little sister when he was a teenager. Also, that he had already forgiven himself for this, so there was no reason for me to criticize him. What a piece of crap. My best friend told me he was forced to take ADHD medication as a child and would force himself to throw it up every morning before school. I would keep it in my mouth until the bus came and Jay would spit it out as I was crossing the street, ensuring cars would destroy the evidence. I eventually got sloppy and caught by my mom, but all the doctor did was change the type of meds. I wonder if it's messed me up in some way. One of my best friends and I had a drunken heart-to-heart years ago. He was way more drunk than I was and doesn't remember a thing. I remember him telling me that he thinks he might be gay. He asked what he said to me the next day and I just told him a lot of things I won't tell you, but if you want to talk to me sober, just know that I'll love you like a brother no matter what. He has been through a rough patch in his life in the last few years and I think that may be the majority of it, but he has never said anything to me since and I don't want to force him to. You never know. If you tell him what he said, he might be relieved, as that way you already know without him having to say it again, which he's obviously having a hard time coming to terms with. More awkward than depressing. A male friend said, you know, Kellyan, I've always wanted to frick you. The part that made me feel the worst is that this was in front of my husband and his wife. A girl I know once got wasted and in the middle of a fun conversation I thought was going upstairs she dropped this bomb. She told me she was raped in middle school by her father, then again by her boyfriend when she was a freshman. He was a senior and everyone loved him, so everyone thought she was lying and shunned her whole high school career. She finally tells me that she broke up with her boyfriend, who I was friends with until this conversation, because he raped her in her sleep and that she was thinking of killing herself. She passed out a few minutes ties of silence later. I didn't know how to process any of that, so I took her to my room, tucked her into bed away from the party, went back downstairs and drank in silence for the rest of the night. I don't think she knows she told me any of that and I don't think I want her to know. That he's gay and the only reason he married his wife is because he got curious, had sex with her and on the first shot he got preggo. His baby is now 2 and he is miserable. Yeah, that's a rough age. High school buddy and I reconnected at our 10-year reunion. Nobody is really popular at an all-male high school, but that being said he was a football star and generally known and liked. I happened to be in town on his 30th, and since he doesn't have plans I call a few guys and we proceed to tie one on, Ubering to bars all over town. He'd never heard of Uber and drinking smoking more than we should. After a minor run-in with some park cops, long story short, we were drunk in a closed park. They told us to keep moving. His mood does a 180 degree, and he starts loudly accusing me of not caring about getting him in trouble, or that his job is on the line, and that he can't afford any more legal issues after his 3 DUIs. Well, maybe you would have plans for your 30th if you weren't an angry, irresponsible drunk. I was the drunk one. She must have thought the next day I wouldn't remember. She told me her older sister had sexually abused her all through her childhood. Shortly after that talk she had a psychotic break and had to be institutionalized for a longish time. She's still not all there. Looking back, she had been losing it for a while before her break. So I don't know if what she told me about her sister is true. Other things she told me around that time were paranoid delusions. She has a good relationship with her sister, although in private and sober. She has confided that she resents her sister's good looks and the fact that she is gainfully employed and not mentally ill. My very close cousin to me. Bro, my parents are getting divorced. The worst part is, I just said the same thing to him 2 weeks ago while drunk. 8 years later, at the time, I didn't know what to say. Now I realize he just wanted me to listen, the same way I wanted him to listen. Ex-father-in-law told me about all the young girls he brought back to his private island property. When questioned as to what his wife and the mother of his 2 children was doing at the time, he said something to the effect of, "Look, you have to understand. Women get old, and fat, and smelly, and they never wanna have sex and they just fart on you in bed." I had to sit at the dinner table with the 2 of them after that. One of my ultimate hatreds is people who cheat on their partners. I had to keep my mouth shut because it's not my place at all. Plus I'm not with his daughter anymore so I don't have to see it. Well heck, I fart in the bed now. I'd better find someone who will tolerate that for the next 50 years. I know that this will probably get buried but I wanted to share it anyway. I was in Cambodia a few years ago. I was staying at this great little hostel near to Angkor Wat and made friends with almost everyone there in the usual hostel fashion. My favorite person there was this lovely elderly Irish guy. He was probably in his 70s and reminded me of a jolly Irish Santa Claus. He said he used to be a music teacher and would sing us songs every night. He had a beautiful voice. He was always so kind to everyone there and it was obvious he had been there for a while. One night he got a little drunk and asked me if I could help him respond to an email from his daughter since he wasn't very good with computers. As I read his daughter's email, I realized that it kept mentioning illness, doctors and lawyers. He finally broke down and told me his story. He hadn't been home in 7 years. He sold everything and left Ireland after his son and wife both died in the same year. He just couldn't stand to be there. He traveled around Southeast Asia mostly and volunteered teaching church choirs all over Thailand. One night, when he was in Bangkok, he was attacked by a random guy. They fought for a bit when a police officer, who they suspect had been in on it, came out of nowhere and arrested him. He spent about a month in a Thai jail before his daughter was able to send him the money to get out on bail. Now, the problem is that his court date wasn't very soon and his money was quickly running out. He had cancer and didn't have enough money to continue buying medicine while abroad. He panicked and made a really rash decision. He paid the last of his money to someone to smuggle him across the border to Cambodia. By jumping bail, he became a fugitive. He is now stuck because the Irish embassy was refusing to help a fugitive and demanding that he return to Thailand. If he returns to Thailand, he will go straight to prison where he will whittle away with no medicine. For the week or so I was at that hostel, I helped him email back and forth with his daughter. I always wondered what happened to him. I don't remember his full name. I don't remember what the hostel was called. All I remember is how sweet and gentle he was to everyone and how beautiful his voice was. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.